So what we need to do now is build a report card for our friend here at Cascade, okay? So you've got your income statement, you've got your balance sheet, and you've taken out the ratio report card, right? The ratio analysis spreadsheet, we're calling it. Okay, so let's take a look at that, because a couple of things about this we need to know. Number one, it is a report card. How many ratios? We've talked about ratios now. How many ratios are we going to measure? There's 14 of them. Your clue is that they're numbered 1 through 14, right? Now, if I gave you a book of financial ratios, how many would there be in it? Hundreds. What we've picked are the 14. There's two criteria. Number one, that we picked them because they will help us measure the key drivers. And secondly, because with 14, they fit on one page. Okay, and I'm sort of a one-sheet guy. I think people actually have trouble when there's more than one sheet if we can do it on one sheet. Now, certainly in a whole lot of businesses, there's other ratios you can measure. Keep in mind that what I'm trying to outline here is a process. These are not meant to be the only 14 ratios that are ever measured. We've already talked about productivity ratios in a service business. So they would take the place of ratios 9 and 10 inventory. So there is some ways to add in other ratios. In fact, you have enough space here to personalize this for your own business if you choose to, right? And that happened all the time. But again, we're trying to illustrate a process, a way of laying information out that is decision relevant. That's really what we're focusing on here. So let's just take a little orientation of this baby. First of all, we've got going down 1 through 14. We've got them broken into groups of 4, right? There's 4 groups here. Ratios 1 through 3. We call them balance sheet ratios, and what are we measuring? You can read it right there to the right of the words balance sheet ratios. Stability or staying power. Think of your balance sheet as shock absorbers in your car. The stronger balance sheet you have, when we go over rocky times in the economy, you'll get an easier ride. If you have a weak balance sheet, it's going to be a bumpier ride, huh? Then ratios 4 and 5, income statement ratios, measuring what? So measuring efficiency or stability, measuring profitability, right? Ratios 6, 7, 8, asset management ratios. The key word there, efficiency, and ratios 9 through 14, the working capital cycle ratios, huh? Measuring 9 and 10. If you just do me a favor, on your scorecard, circle the numbers 9 and 10 because they go together as a pair. 9 and 10, just one big circle around both of them. 9 and 10. So we're measuring in ratio number 9, we're measuring inventory turns. In ratio number 10, we're measuring inventory what? Days. So turns and days. And then 11 and 12, the same thing. Circle them together as a pair. It's receivables turn, receivables days. And 13 and 14, payables turn, payables days. Circle them as a pair, okay? First column, numbered 1 through 14, correct? Sequentially. The next column, giving us what? The name of the ratio, huh? Third column is the one we really need. What does that give us? The formula, how to calculate it. We've got to know how to calculate it. The fifth column, the ratios in year 1, isn't that right? They're already filled in. The next column, the ratios in year 2, they're already filled in, aren't they? The third column, the ratios in year 3 are blank. You probably know where we're going with this, huh? There is room for you to do some work here. The last column over there on the, well, it's the second to the last column, industry composite. Who's this? This is the others in your field. And again, we'll talk about sources of comparative data because there are lots of them out there, some better known than others, but we need a yardstick here. This is our yardstick column. And then finally on the far right, what does it say? Calculation, trends, and observations. This is for notes. This is the SYW column, show your work. As we go through to calculate these ratios, I'd like you to actually drop in the numbers, working with your partner, okay? So this will work out really well. Now what I want to do is I want to work through a couple of them together. And so I thought it would be good to work through the first three: the current ratio, the quick ratio, and the debt to worth ratio. You with me on this? Yes. All right, so here we go. You've got your balance sheet. These are all balance sheet ratios, so it's very likely we'll find these numbers where? On the balance sheet. Yes, indeed. And I want you in the far right to put in your numbers. So somebody help me. The formula for the current ratio, and by the way, what does the current ratio measure? It measures the ability to pay bills. It's as simple as that, okay? And we're going to get it by dividing the current assets by the current liabilities. You with me on this? Okay, so somebody help me on the far right. What are the current assets? Somebody shout it out. 726,100. And what are the current liabilities? 734,400. Absolutely right. And this is what I want you to do. I want you to drop in these numbers as well, so that you'll be able to go back and find them when you get home to try this on your own financial statements. And somehow it seemed easy here, and now it's not so easy. You have a roadmap to get back here. And now I'd like somebody who's got a calculator and can run it to do the calculation and tell me what the number is. 0.99. What? 0.99. 0.99. Now we could go farther than that, but anything more than two decimals to the right, or two numbers to the right of the decimal point, will count as too anal, okay? This is close enough for government work, all right? 0.99. Now we got to do one other thing. 0.99 to something. A ratio is always something to what? 1. 0.99 to 1. You with me? Yep. All right. And if you're thinking that it would be really cool if we had a software program so that we wouldn't have to do all this by hand, you're right, and there is. But today, because I knew it would be more fun, and that's one of the things I want to convince you over the course of this journey through the financial statements of a business. Finance isn't boring. Finance is fun. Keep repeating that to yourself. F-I-F. Finance is fun, all right? 0.99 to 1. And if I had to measure or identify the trend in these numbers, which way are they going? They're going down. Mark it. Now, let's answer the burning question. So what? Who gives a rip here? Well, what we need to know is what this means. And that's where we need to take a moment and just figure out how to say this in words, because then it will help us explain what's going on here. And I can tell you that the first time that I was introduced to these ratios was with my banker, who called me in after he gave us an SBA loan. 6 months down the track, he said, send us your financial information. We get a call. He says, come on in. We got to talk. So we sat down at his desk, my partner and I. He had a set of ratios like that, just like we're doing here, except he didn't have all the stuff that explains it. We just had what? Numbers. He had a pile for me, a pile for my partner, and he had one. And he had this ratio scorecard on top. And he comes up and he hands it to us and he goes, look at that. So I looked. I had no clue what I was looking at, but I thought, the good news is he'll never know that. So he said, are you aware that your current ratio is 0.99? And I thought to myself for a minute, and I said, yes, I am. Absolutely. But don't worry, we'll get her down there. And of course, it's the last part that I added that proved I was what? An idiot. That's exactly right. It's kind of, I guess sometimes it's kind of like you don't talk too much. Just answer the question, you know. Embellish it too much and you can get in trouble. So I came up with 4 little words that will just help us describe any ratio, anywhere, anytime. And it goes like this. For every $1 of. For every $1 of, this is what you want to remember, for every $1 of. And let's just put this one in words. For every $1 of, what's the bottom? Current liabilities, he's got how much? 99 cents of current assets. So for every dollar going out, he's got how much coming in? 99 cents. Can you see that there's a slip between the cup and the lip? How about last year? For every dollar going out, how much do you have coming in? $1.10. And the year before? $1.70. What's happening to his ability to pay bills? It's deteriorating, okay? And the other thing we need to know, we need to add one more thing over here on the left. R-O-T. Rot. That would be rule of thumb. Rule of thumb. What would we like to see in the bank if we happen to be a banker? What would a bank like to see? A current ratio of what? We'd like to see a current ratio of at least 2 to 1. 2 to 1. Now what I'd like you to do, use my little explanation and explain 2 to 1 to your partner. Put it in words. You'll have to talk to do that. For every what? For every dollar of current liabilities, we'd like to see what? $2. That rule of thumb. Well, wouldn't we all? We could also call this banker's wish list. It's kind of interesting. Sometimes when you see a business with a 2 to 1 current ratio, they don't need to talk to you. And in fact, those 2 to 1s, what are they saying? They're putting their money in the bank, and what are they saying? Don't loan it to the .99s. Them guys could lose it. That's the model we've got here. So you can put these in words. And where did these rules of thumb come from? I have no idea. I have no idea. We just sort of had them, and they were there, and they came. I remember when I went through training, and we asked our instructor, where'd you get that number? 2 to 1. He says, I learned it from Wally. Wally's dead. Hey. What's going to be more valuable to us is right over here, isn't it? What does the industry look like? What do my other companies that are in this same sector that I work in, what do they look like? That's what I'm really going to probably be more concerned about. Although it's helpful to remember these rules of thumb. Why? When you're talking to a banker, at least you know some of the information you might get back, some of the comments that might be made. So again, this is a process of communication. All right, you with me? Now the rest of them ought to be easy. The quick ratio. What are we going to measure? Simple. It's the ability to generate cash. The ability to generate cash. And some of you have probably already worked ahead of me. Somebody tell me, how much is cash on your balance sheet? How much is cash?
283.
Cash is 12 and accounts receivable are 270, so the total is 282 divided by the current liabilities, which hopefully are still 734.4, right? And the number is? Anybody? 0.38 to 1. Somebody, what does this say in words? For every dollar of current liabilities, he's got 38 cents of cash and accounts receivable. Liquid assets, huh? Liquid assets. They will turn, and we left out inventory there. Why? It doesn't turn to cash as quickly. It sits there. Hopefully the receivables will come back sooner because at least we know that somebody owes us money already. We still have to collect. You with me? And the trend? Down. Okay, so how's he doing so far? We know why he's here at the bank, don't we? All right, and the last one. Oh, and the rule of thumb? We'd like to see at least what? For every dollar of current liabilities, we'd like to see $1 of liquid assets. What do my daughters say? Yeah, right. All right, and this next one, debt to worth. Let's call this the banker's ratio. the banker's ratio. And we're measuring something that's near and dear to the hearts of anybody who lends money. It's a four-letter word that starts with R. And the vowel that Vanna will allow you to buy is I. Risk. Debt equals risk. Debt equals risk. That's exactly right. Debt to worth is a measure of risk in the business. Liabilities is money put up by somebody else. Net worth is money put up by whom? You. Total liabilities, what are they? Somebody, I see a lot of you have dropped in the numbers already, and hopefully you have if you're working out there as well. 8 what? 823.7. And the net worth? 3073. And if you can't find either of those numbers, or indeed any of the numbers, talk to your partner. Talk to your facilitator. We want you to know how to do this. Now, somebody who cranked out the number, help me. 2.7. 2 point what? 2.7. 2.68 or 2.7 to 1? To 1. The arrow's going which way? Up. In this case, a rising arrow means more what? Debt, and more liabilities and debt we'll use as interchangeable terms. So a rising arrow means more debt, and more debt means more risk. In other words, right now, in this case, in this particular company, all three of his balance sheet ratios are going which way? The wrong way. His ability to pay bills is deteriorating, his ability to generate cash is deteriorating, and his risk is increasing. Huh? Overall, the quality of his balance sheet is doing what? Deteriorating. That's exactly right. It's deteriorating. You got the process? So what I'd like to do now is we'll stop recording. You take a few minutes with your partner and calculate the rest of the ratios. And when you've got them done, we'll come back and compare your answers with mine. All right?